Good evening and greetings from Ghana. Those people who are still on their videos, it's worth putting it off because I'm going to lose you through streaming. I don't have. That's great. Thank you. So sorry about that. When I get to the UK, hopefully I'll be able to see you all. So yes, I'm still in Ghana and we're now moving into the small intestines. Before we actually go into the small intestines, I want to just to reaffirm what we're doing here at CPH as practical homeopaths. If you look at this slide at the bottom, we're looking at the foundation to health, which is nutrition. And then from nutrition, we use herbs to support patients and supplements. We use tissue salts to enhance the process of absorption. We use bowel nodes when there's inflammation in the bowels. We use homeopathy. Now, all these things support your homeopathic treatment. And then when we come to mental emotional issues, we've got flower essences and meditative provings. So this gives you a holistic overview of what it is that you're learning at CPH. And if people want to ask me more questions about that, we can do that later. Okay, so what I want to do is to look at the digestive system. I'm going to do a recap from part 1 to part 3. So in part 1, we looked at the mouth, and the mouth is the opening to the physical world, and it's the way we take in food and nourishment. Here's where we speak our truth. We eat slowly and we take in, and it goes down to the stomach. And then the body processes that and breaks it down in the stomach. This is where we digest life. Problems here are about being able to digest our reality. And so from a Chinese perspective, the essence that comes through is taken into the spleen and then down from the stomach into the small intestines. Now, the stomach needs an acid environment, hydrochloric acid, to be able to break down foods properly, especially proteins and certain vitamins and minerals that require an acid-based digestive process. If the stomach's not functioning properly and is slightly alkaline, you're going to have problems. And you'll know when you've got stomach problems because this is where you get the heartburn, the acid reflux. As it goes down into the small intestines and moves into the duodenum, the first part of the small intestines, it's receiving a much more alkaline base. So anything that's acidic that comes through, it's slowly alkalized by the pancreas, and you've got the bile duct that goes through. So what's important in governing the digestive system is the liver. Then as the small intestines absorbs everything, it moves into the large intestines. And this will be part 4 of this talk. So I want to go back to the liver. If the liver's happy, the digestive system is happy. In the 5 elements, the liver is all about holding our anger. And if we're angry, then the digestive system won't work properly. It needs to be able to detoxify, release its anger, and allow the body to digest life appropriately. That's on a psychospiritual, mental, emotional level. This is interconnected. Your mind governs your biosuit. So it's important when you're dealing with patients to work out why the digestive system is not working properly. And I remember when I had a patient who had high cholesterol, what I found out from him was that he had been given news that made him so angry, and this had gone straight into the digestive system. The cholesterol levels had risen, and the whole digestive system was not functioning properly. So this takes us back to our big liver remedies like Nux vomica, Chelidonium, Carduus, because they support the liver to support the digestive system. Okay, now as intrepid explorers and detectives, you want to find out why the digestive system, especially the small intestines, isn't functioning properly. Okay, so any drugs that cause constipation, diarrhea, abdominal bloating, and nausea are affecting the small intestines. That's all you need to know when you're looking at drug side effects. If you see those symptoms and side effects, it's the small intestine that's being affected. Okay, so all the drugs, these are chemical based. They're not natural to us. They're petrochemicals. And the body has a hard time dealing with petrochemicals and breaking them down. And this is why the liver is so important if they're taking drugs. And you've got to go back there. You need to look at the drugs your patient are on. And some patients may come with about 5 different drugs that they're on, all affecting different aspects of the digestive system, like destroying the bioflora, you know, making the small intestines far too acidic, etc., etc. So go back. We're always talking about cause, effects, and obstacles to cure. Find out the cause of your patient's digestive problems. I had a patient call me for an appointment with acid reflux, nausea, and the inability to eat. The first thing I asked him is, what drugs are you on? And he just gave me a whole list of drugs. And I know if I look at the effects, they're his problem. They will be his problem. So be a detective and make life easy for your patients and yourself. So drug muggers. When we talk about drug mugging at CPH, this is about people who've taken so many drugs that they're stripped of all their constitutional vitality, because every drug is going to remove essential vitamins and minerals. So I say to patients, look, there's 2 things in your life. You've got foods that heal, herbs that heal and support you, and you've got foods that take everything out, and you've got drugs that will take everything out of the body. And if you want to prematurely age, keep doing what you're doing. If you want to heal and, you know, youth, you need to you know, change what you're doing with your body. It works by having the resources to heal itself. Okay, I put this up. Now, the red parts of this diagram are areas of inflammation in the small and large intestines. I'll put it back again in the large intestines. I'll tell you why it's here. Because allopaths will give names to different areas of the digestive system which are inflamed. So it just tells you where the inflammation is in the small intestines, okay, and the large intestine. So you just need to have an idea of where the inflammation is in the body. Okay, so the small intestines, this is this bit here, is the longest part of the digestive system. And it's about 20 feet long. And this is why this system needs to be functioning properly. Otherwise, you're going to get all sorts of problems. And so it connects to the large intestines or colon in several folds. So most of the food digestion, when it leaves the stomach in its acid stage, is neutralized into an alkaline state. And when you're seeing bloating and pain in the abdomen, this is the small intestines talking. And that's why you'll find that taking things like bicarbonate of soda, So, you know, when I recommend patients take bicarb to ease bloating and stomach problems and digestion, it's because the bicarb is going to alkalize the small intestines, you see. So when you take it, you've got to wait about an hour for the bicarbonate to get into the small intestines, and then allow the stomach acidity to come back to normal. So this is why, you know, bicarb works for patients when they got bloating and discomfort. And the reason why they get bloating and discomfort and pain in their stomach in the small intestines is because you've got two valves, the pyloric valve and the sacroiliac valve. So any bacteria that shouldn't be there and is digesting food is creating gas. Now, if you've got valves on either end, there's nowhere for that gas to go. So it becomes really, really painful. And if the sacroiliac valve is not working, then what you've got is bacteria from the colon seeping into the small intestines, and it shouldn't really be doing that. Okay. So the time modality for the small intestines is between 1 and 3 p.m. It's paired with the heart. The reason it's paired with the heart in Chinese medicine is it's in this area that we absorb life, that nutrients are further broken down from the stomach, absorbed by the lymphatic system, and then taken to the circulatory system. So it's nourishing blood. It works with it. So, you know, your blood, you know, is oxygenated from the lungs, from the heart, and then you've got the nourishment from the food you have. So this is all about absorption. Any problems here, whether it's mental, emotional, or chronic inflammation, needs to be sorted out. And when I get patients with small intestinal problems, I know straight away they're suffering from cellular malnutrition, and I have got work to do with them to improve what's going on. Okay, so some of the problems you'll see in the small intestines. Today, I'm just going to give you a basic overview. I'm not going to go into every problem that you're going to see in the small intestines. One of the symptoms of small intestine diseases are mild to severe abdominal pain resulting from inflammation. So this is what is experienced for most people who've got gut dysbiosis, small intestinal dysbiosis. And of course, they've got swelling in the abdomen, inflammation.
Okay. There we go. Don't worry. It's back on.
Okay. All right. Why you need to know this is because some of the small intestinal problems that patients may come to may be caused by Salmonella food poisoning, E. coli, Shigarlia, Staphylococcus aureus. So you want to work out what was the underlying cause. So we've looked at drugs as being a cause. Now we want to look at some of the bacterial infections that may be a cause of the small intestines inflammation. So inflammation in the small intestines may be due to radiation. When people go in for cancer treatment, it may affect the small intestines. We've talked about medications and the different drugs that you need to research. And then you're looking at inflammation, which is considered autoimmune. Now, this often comes because the small intestines become so damaged that large food molecules pass through the small intestines, and the body responds to this as an immune response. And the inflammation is part of that immune response. Okay, so as a homeopath, before you start addressing the small intestines, you need to take the inflammation down. This is very, very important. So if you've got patients with Crohn's disease, irritable bowel, and problems like that, go and take the inflammation down. Help the body to assimilate the nutrients. So you may not be able to start with the indicated remedies that you think, i.e. if they come and it's all because of stress, you've seen that a couple of people have died, they've been very stressed, and they've not been eating well. You may just have to start with taking that inflammation down. You need to look at ways of taking the acidity in the small intestine down. And I've just, for me, the best one is bicarbonate of soda. The other thing that will usually, which I recommend patients take, is Higher Nature's Alka, because this has got magnesium, bicarbonate of magnesium, sodium, potassium, okay, and calcium. So it's got the 4 electrolyte minerals in a bicarbonate, and your body will understand this and it will begin to alkalize the small intestine. Take them off adrenal stimulating foods, because this can acidify the system, and then address your obstacles to cure like drugs. This is a process. Okay, so some of the named diseases that allopaths will give with small intestinal problems is celiac disease, Crohn's disease, and irritable bowel. And I'm just going to look at these very, very briefly, and then we're going to look at how you take the inflammation down with various remedies, okay? Because what allopaths do is they categorize symptoms for particular areas in the digestive tract, but really it's just inflammation. And for you, you want to know the cause of that inflammation, whether it's diet, mental, emotional, whether it's drugs. Because if you don't know that, you're not going to be able to use your tools properly and support your patients. Okay. Okay, so celiac disease. This is about gluten sensitivity. It's due to damage from gluten in the small intestines. And people who suffer from celiac disease but don't avoid the foods containing gluten, their immune system responds adversely in destroying the small intestines. So they get bleeding, terrible abdominal pain. So the thing with celiacs is that they have to avoid gluten, and you've got to support them to repair the damage that gluten is doing. Gluten is hidden in many, many foods. So this can be a nightmare for a lot of, patients. But this is a must. And I tell you why, because I had a very close friend who, she was a nurse, and she wouldn't listen to me about her celiacs. And I said to her, look, at least take 12 tissue salts, to help you with the celiacs disease. Homeopathy can help you, She was into allopathy, etc. She eventually, you see, when you've got celiac or any of these inflammatory diseases, you begin suffering from chronic malnutrition on a cellular level. Okay, so the cell salts are essential. Finding things to take this inflammation down. And she, God bless her and rest her soul, what happened was, over the years, this celiac started after her mother died. Okay, so it's ailments from grief. Then it's all the anti-inflammatories, the steroids, etc. So I knew that she was very, very malnourished. If you don't address this malnourishment, she headed off premature Alzheimer's. So at 52, she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. Okay? This is a really important that the patients take this on board, and you as a practitioner take this on board in terms of healing the small intestine. So that's celiac disease. The next is Crohn's, and it is very similar to celiac in the sense that there is inflammation, okay? And they're not sure what the cause is, but the Crohn's disease affects the lower part of the small intestines before it joins the large intestine. Okay, so this is ulceration. So when you see any form of ulceration in the system, what are you going to think? Light bulb, malnutrition. What's the cause? How are you going to take this down? Okay, so one of my patients, a young lad, again, ailments from grief. He came back from school at the age of 14 to see the ambulance is at his house, and his mother had died of a heart attack. Okay, and within a year, he was diagnosed with Crohn's disease. Loads and loads of prednisolone. And what really shocked me when I saw him was no one had discussed diet, what he was eating. And he found that what seemed to work for him and settle his stomach was drinking Coca-Cola. Okay, so he was a massive learning curve for me in terms of getting people off diet, off, synthetic foods, and taking the inflammation down. So I learned all about Crohn's and ulcerative colitis from that particular patient. Okay, irritable bowel syndrome. Now this is absolutely common. You'll see a lot of patients with this, where it goes from diarrhea to constipation. Usually when you're discussing this with your patient, the small intestines is inflamed, they have gurgling, pain in their stomach. If you trace back, you can find the mental emotional causation. And I say grief is one of the biggest ones in here, but there are other, like ailments from anger, etc. But they also become food sensitive. So you've often got to take them off gluten as well. And the other one is milk, because the casein in the milk actually aggravates the small intestines when it's inflamed. Okay, so if they come with real damage to the small intestines, incredible pain and inflammation, it's important to begin the process of dietary changes. Look at what they're eating. This is essential, because otherwise, if you don't address this, your indicated remedies are not going to work, because they will be malnourished on a cellular level. You may just want to start on the 12 tissue salts. That's all you might want to do with your patients. And herbal tinctures like burdock root, which will take down the inflammation. It's an anti-inflammatory, but we'll talk more about some of the anti-inflammatory herbals. And of course, there's Narayani nutrition balance, but there's something that is so important that helps to heal the small intestine, and that's butyric acid, which you find in butter, which actually helps to take inflammation in the small intestines down and supports healing in the small intestines. Okay, so if they're on tautopathic remedies like cortisone, you may have to work out a program of slowly healing the small intestines so they're ready to do a detox with nux vomica and cortisone in potency. So one of my favorites is the CPH adrenal support, which has got an adrenal gland, adrenaline, cortisone, histamine, vitamins C, D3, K2, B6, B5, B12, and E, carb, caliphos, selenium, hydrocortisol. Now, hydrocortisol is a herb that supports proper adrenal function, okay, and magphos. So what you're looking at is supporting the adrenals to function properly, because if the adrenals don't get enough magnesium, this stimulates the kidneys to excrete large amounts of sodium and potassium. And so the whole acid-alkaline balance in the body goes out. This is such a delicate balance. And I find that with the 12 tissue salts and adrenal support, particularly for those patients who've been taking a lot of prednisolone, this is a good place to start, just with the CPH adrenal support. Okay, Narayani Digestion Special, and I'm using combination remedies here because if the patient is inflamed and the small intestines are not functioning, I'm going to repeat this again, they will be malnourished on a cellular level. So the combination remedies will gently support this process of healing without any aggravations. I can tell you about some of the major aggravations I've had with patients when I first started homeopathy and not understanding this, you know, repetrizing and coming out with arsenicum for a patient with Crohn's disease, and it fitted everything, apart from the fact I hadn't taken into consideration that they were malnourished on a cellular level. I gave arsenicum and all hell broke loose, massive aggravation, because I had a prednisolone obstacle to cure, which I hadn't taken into consideration. So the Digestion Special is the most fantastic combination because it's got liver balance in it, it's got digestion balance, blood sugar balance, acidity mix, constipation balance, and anemia balance. These patients, you know, when they come with inflammatory bowel problems, are normally anemic. They don't have enough iron. And from my experience of mild anemia, etc., is that they won't respond that well to your remedies. So it's important that, you know, this is a very, very important remedy. And even if you think, okay, I'm just going to do digestion special, add it to CPH adrenal support, work for months, depending on how long your patient's been taking prednisolone, etc. You just work slowly. There's no rush in this, okay? A lot of people will have had it for years. Okay, Narayani Nutrition Mix. It's essential. Okay, this is for any form of malnutrition and deficiency. You can use these remedies together as one. I know it sounds like a massive combination, but when you've got to this level of malnutrition, you need every tool in your toolbox to support the healing of this organ, because without it, your patient is slowly dying from malnutrition. They usually look quite malnourished, dehydrated, and miserable because, you know, if the digestive system isn't working properly, you will be miserable. You'll be grumpy, you'll be exhausted, and you'll be weak because you're suffering from malnutrition. Okay, so this is for run-down constitutions. Okay, so now you've got a SAR code. And SAR codes are very, very important. So small intestines on is very, very important. Why? Because when you give the body the message of how healthy tissue is, it's like being a conductor in an orchestra. You're supporting the body and reminding it of how healthy that organ should be. So what's interesting about this particular combination is that it has all the parts of the whole of the small intestines, but it also has the Prius patches. Now, the Prius patches actually is, you know, stimulates the peristalsis to make sure it's attached to the nervous system to make sure that food passes smoothly through the small intestines. So it doesn't sit there and begin to ferment and rot in the small intestines. It shouldn't be doing that. So if the Prius patches are not functioning properly, giving the nervous system the right information and everything's sluggish and slowed down, giving a SAR code is going to support the body to go back and give the nutrition and the repair in the right place. So these are my, combination remedies that I use over and over again for the small intestines. Okay, so let me look at some of the single remedies for the small intestines. And one is Lumbricus terrestris, the earthworm in homeopathic potency. Okay, one is that it will help the patient to replace the beneficial flora back in the right place. And they've done, I think, trials on people eating earthworm to find when they've got Crohn's disease is that if they eat earthworm, they begin to actually repair the ulcers in the small intestines. The other remedy, which I haven't put in here, is snail in homeopathic potency, Helix toaster. And that's another thing that, you can buy. If they're really damaged, you can buy snail mucus and drink that to repair the damage. And the other thing that's very important is all the herbs that have mucilage. They will repair the ulceration. So Lumbricus terrestris is a very, very important remedy when you are dealing with the repair of the small intestine. You won't find this if you repertorize. You need to get to know it as a remedy within its own rights. Okay, and it works a little bit like polybal. Okay, so it's got billions of bacteria in it as it's burrowing through the soil, digesting bacteria, releasing. Earthworms are so important for the soil, and the soil of your digestive system is in the small intestines, because that's where you're absorbing everything. That's where you're taking life in and understanding life. So Lumbricus terrestris, hey, I rate it as a fantastic remedy in this process of healing the small intestine. Have you noticed I'm not looking at causations yet, because I'm preparing my patients by repairing the small intestines, taking them off foods, getting the combination remedies and the herbs to do the repair. This is not a quick job. It does take time, and you have to manage this with your patients. So the other thing is aloe. Okay, it's as a remedy, and you may want to use it as a aloe juice. But what you've got here is this blood and lumpy watery stools, jelly in the stools, which you'll see a lot with Crohn's disease. Abdominal cramping, really bad, and extreme weakness. So these patients are in a terrible state. And my biggest concern about what we're doing with all the antibiotics and the drugs we're taking is we're destroying the small intestine. So I've had patients as young as 4 and 7 years of age coming to me with Crohn's disease, and it shouldn't be happening. This is not a good sign for the next generation. Okay, China. You see, China is important here because if people are losing a lot of stools, watery stools, etc., they become very, very weak and malnourished. And China is very, very important. So the stools smell, they're brackish, and there's a lot of undigested food in the stools. And they're worse at night after eating. Okay, I like dysentery bacillus, disco. Now, this is for anxiety and digestive problems. And that anxiety comes from anticipatory anxiety. So the stomach is dilated. There's terrible pain and indigestion. And it's great for irritable bowel, where you see, you know, constipation and diarrhea, especially if it's coming from anticipation. Works well with lycopodium. Okay, very loose morning stools. They're extremely anxious. I've put Giardia lambelia here because a lot of the patients I've seen with irritable bowel and Crohn's disease have had some sort of intestinal parasite. You know, they went on holiday to Africa and they didn't know how to look after themselves, so they went to India. They got amoebic dysentery, etc., and they've never been well since. So Giardia in homeopathic potency is fantastic to stop all the inflammation, the diarrhea, the general sense of feeling sick. Podophyllum, this is a great remedy. Okay, again, early morning stools, incredible weakness in the bowels, alternating between constipation and diarrhea. These are all big remedies for irritable bowel. It's a liver remedy, and you will see a lot of patients with irritable bowel. Herbal recommendations, alfalfa. Now, I like this herb because it's alkalizing. It's full of nutrition, which your patients are going to need. As a remedy, you'll see that it has a lot of diarrhea with a lot of flatus and burning, and the stools are very loose. So alfalfa is nutritive, and you can use that with patients. Burdock root, this is my favorite for the whole digestive system because it has a lot of antioxidants. It supports the digestive system. It contains inulin, a soluble prebiotic fiber that helps improve digestion. So it's a healthy food for gut bacteria. Again, it contains mucilage for the gastric mucosa. So it helps wounds to heal. So it's an excellent, excellent herb. Okay, now one of the things I've not talked about with the small intestines is parasites. That's a separate webinar in its own right, looking at parasites. But Artemisia, for me, is an excellent remedy for the small intestines. It's a great liver remedy. It's very good for heartburn. And it's one of the #1 remedies for worms. So when I'm here in Ghana, I take, Artemisia is the herb that I'm taking on a daily basis to protect me from malaria, to protect me from picking up parasites, etc., etc. And when I've given this herb to my grandchildren, even my kids, the first thing you notice is they start stooling a lot of pinworms and threadworms, etc. So it's an excellent remedy. Okay, now I'm throughout the 4 parts of this discussion, all the remedies we've talked to for the mouth, the stomach, the small intestines, and what we're going to talk to in the larger can be used for any condition. Okay, you just have to work out the cause, what your obstacles are, and what your indicated remedies are. But definitely for the small intestines, you've got to take the inflammation down. So it's the same with essential minerals and nutrients. I've been talking about various nutrients as we go through. So things like essential fatty acids are essential for repairing and supporting the liver and the bowels and the small intestines. Flax seeds as well, because they're very mucilage and they stimulate the system to get going. And then, antioxidants like vitamin A. So if you're looking at the other talks, actually you can use those supplements for any part. I've just divided them up so that, there's not too many supplements. And I think that has brought me to the end of my talks, and thank you for being so patient with us getting started late. Any questions?
Hi, Ellen. Yes,
Hi.
we're just trying out new tech tonight. Wasn't quite playing exactly how we wanted it to, but we got there in the end.
Yeah.
We've got one question. For those who have any questions, please pop them in the chat section. And the first question is, I don't have a Silas machine. Is there another way of getting those remedies?
You can actually order them, order the remedies from Helios or Ainsworth, the combination remedies. They will sell them. There's a lady called Namisha who sell, and there's also another CPH graduate, Pauline Gould, who sells the Narayani remedies that you can order directly from them as well. If they know that you're a CPH student or graduate, they're quite happy to sell them to you, or you can buy them from Ainsworth, etc. I've got a feeling that the Narayani do their own. The Narayani do. If you speak to Namisha, they do the CPH adrenal support. He does do our adrenal support as well. So you can order that from Namisha if you don't have a machine.
Okay. Artemisia in potency, presumably as too high in, I don't know, sorry. I'm struggling with this question.
Yeah, okay, so it may be that she's asking, can she use Artemisia as a remedy as opposed to a herb? Yes, you can. And I would use it in a lower potency, because what you're wanting is it to work on a physical level. But if you want to, if the person has a lot of worms, you can use it. You can use it high. It depends on how you're going to use the Artemisia.
Okay. Thank you. Guys, are there any other questions? I did lose a bit of signal earlier, so I've lost some of the questions. My abdomen is bloated, and I feel I took too much sugar today, cane sugar. Would it cause some inflammation in the digestive system?
Yeah, of course it will. Sugar is one of the foods that takes. It's not a nutrient at all. It takes nutrients from the system to be able to process it. So you're actually depleting yourself of things like magnesium, which are essential for taking down inflammation. So yeah, I'm not surprised you feel bloated and uncomfortable. And the other foods that will make you feel very bloated and uncomfortable is eating bread, pasta. All those foods will irritate the small intestines. And if you're gluten sensitive, and if you've got a very sort of mild gluten sensitivity, you'll feel very uncomfortable and bloated.
Okay. Do you have any recommendations for IBS, where flatulence is a major problem causing extreme social anxiety?
Yes. Well, I would say, go back to the remedies that I've given you, like dysentery co, lycopodium, because these remedies are very good for anticipatory anxiety. So what happens is, because there's a lot of flatulence with the irritable bowel, that they worry about being, with people. So the anticipation of that adds to the problem. So it makes them anxious to be around people. So you want to look at the remedies that deal with anticipatory anxiety, like arginate, disco, lycopodium, look at arsenicum as well, because arsenicum is a big remedy for the adrenals, you see. But when you're anxious like this, you're losing minerals, you're losing vitamins. So you're in a circle, okay? It's a cycle, catch-22. And you've got to find a way of getting to why they've got irritable bowel in the first place. So we've looked at a lot of causations.
Rosie, just going back, my point about artemisium is that if you take it as a herb, it contains thiogen, so can't take this long term as toxic to the liver. So I'm presuming you mean taking it as a remedy instead.
No, I normally take it for short periods of time. I mean, here I've been taking it longer. But yeah, usually it's for about 2 to 3 weeks, and that's enough to clear worms and things. But you can go in and take it as a remedy if you feel like
it. My friend recommended using water kefir for healthy gut, but it grows with sugar to be fermented. Would water kefir help digestive system?
it will. With water kefir, I love it, okay, but you've got this fine line between too much sugar in it before it sort of turns into alcohol. So I would suggest that you go onto kombucha and you ferment the kombucha so that it takes out all the sugar, and I call it kombucha vinegar. And what I do with kombucha vinegar is I take about 25 mils with water every night, and that seems to support the digestive system. So I take out all the sugar. But with the water kefir, I've tried it and I can't quite do it without it turning into alcohol. And I remember sitting here with my sister once, and I was really into the water kefir and drinking loads of it. And then we had it for breakfast and we were both laughing away. And then I thought, Jesus, I'm drunk. I'm actually drunk from the water kefir. So it's a fine balance with it.
So I give it to my children. They love it. Well, kombucha, no, not water kefir. And I've had great results with my kids on kombucha.
Yeah.
And it's pretty easy to do yourself as well.
Yeah. And for me, it was one of the first things after having taken, before I got into homeopathy, taking loads and loads of antibiotics, and I'd been on steroids for my asthma and all that stuff. It was actually kombucha that cured my gut. I really got into brewing kombucha. I've been brewing kombucha for the last 30 years. My kids were brought up on it. It was brilliant. It cleared my skin up completely.
Yeah, I love it. It's quite therapeutic brewing it. I always have another brew on the go.
Yeah.
Okay, I think last question. How much artemisium herb would you use, please, for worms? How many drops?
Well, I only use about 15 drops twice a day. And it's quite strong, and it will expel the worms. For children, for children under the age of 12, you halve the adult dose. So you're talking about 7 drops.
I think that's it.
I was just about to say the whole thing with the small intestines is that the parasite aspect of it has to be addressed, but that is another webinar on parasites. But these are all in your notes when you do the digestive system. So you will cover all of this in your notes when you do the Okay, well, thank you very much.
Yeah, sorry, there's just one really long question, but I think you'll need to contact Ellen directly about that. It's quite an involved, long question. We could be here for quite some time, so that's a leaf. If you could just email Ellen, yeah, and she'll help you with that. All right, yeah, I think we're all good to go. Thanks everybody for joining us. Thanks, Ellen. Hopefully you'll be back
My
soon
pleasure.
in the UK.
Yeah,
And yeah, so we got there with the new tech.
Yeah,
Sorry.
well, I said, yes, we've just found out that both of us are now here slightly longer than we thought we'd be. So my until the 17th, and Kamiko, I hope, will go on the 1st of August. So yeah, we've had an extension.
Oh no, poor Kamiko. All right. Well, thanks, Ellen, and we will chat soon.
Okay, take care. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.